Should we go ahead?
Excuse me, sir. Okay, so good evening. I would like to welcome to this colloquial talks together with Pythagoras Math Digger item project. You know, we are trying to build, you know, a community in order to share ideas and share, you know, challenges towards teaching of STEM. This is a better way to set it up for me since I'm a physicist, but, you know, mathematics is a key course for us as well. So it's a great pleasure to invite and welcome to this colloquial talk of today's Dr. Luis Manuel Santos Trigo. For me, it's a little bit unfamiliar, you know, these long names. In Greece, we have just, you know, first name and surname. Emmanuel is an excellent teacher in mathematics. I had the pleasure and the chance to follow his face-to-face course in GeoGebra when we did a nice training school in Canarias. I think it was last April 2022. I remember the date because I was I had recovered from COVID, and today I had my 4th injection. So Emmanuel, everything related to you has to do on my mind with COVID. And today, a few words about Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a professor at the Mathematics Education Department, Center for Research and Advanced Studies in Mexico. He has received his PhD from the University of British Columbia in Canada. He has spent his postdoctoral fellow in a lot of universities in Europe, but the highlight, I will say, regarding the prestige is the University of California in Berkeley, a place that liberates the spirit of everyone that he's in Berkeley. His research interest involves mathematical problem solving and the use of digital technology along mathematics education. And today's talk, the title is Towards a Framework to Reconcile and Support Students' Remote and Face-to-Face Mathematical Problem-Solving Activities. So, Emmanuel, thank you very much. And the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Constance, for the invitation. And also thank you to the group for giving me this opportunity to share with you part of my work. And so I'm gonna share screen. Do you see my screen now? Okay. So the title of my talk involves some ideas that I want to kind of, you know, address in this talk. I'm going to talk about problem solving. Indeed, problem solving is the research area that I have been working on for some years. And, you know, something in my agenda changed dramatically based on the COVID pandemic. So I want to share those ideas in terms of how we now are framing our, you know, research agenda in the area of mathematical problem solving. What I'm going to do is to isolate some of what I think are the main issues when we talk about problem solving. So I will be talking about, you know, problem posing. Problem posing is an important activity when we do mathematics. An activity that, you know, comes all the time is posing problems. And unfortunately, I think that activity sometimes is not emphasized in the schools settings. So, but I think with now the use of technology, this activity comes out in different ways now. So I'm going to show that the part of problem posing and how we solve different problems. And also, I'll be talking about, you know, some conceptual frameworks. This is a very important issue because, you know, conceptual frameworks are the way to explain how students solve mathematical problems. So what are the main elements when we talk about kids, students solving problems? So in order to explain that, I'm gonna, briefly identify and review some what I consider are the most important frameworks in mathematical problem solving. And in particular, I'll be talking about the use of technology. As I said before, when we talk about problem solving, an issue that we have to take into account is the context issue, which involves the social confinement that we just experienced during the pandemic, and also how that experience that we face somehow ask for changes in the learning environments to do educational tasks. I will also talking about some problems, some difficulties that we face to implement, to make those changes in the actual practice and also in the research agenda. An important part, when we talk about problem solving, when we talk about the use of technology, is the way how we characterize, the way in which students, teachers solve problems, which involve characterizing the way of reasoning when they use different tools. So I'll be talking about that in this talk. So the first question that I want to pose is, what have we learned from schools work during the social confinement? So what in my opinion, sometimes people talk about that students lost the capacity of learning, and they list different difficulties that kids face now during the confinement. So in my opinion, students learn a lot. They learn about themselves. They learn about how to interact with teachers. They use different tools. So that knowledge, in my view, should be taken into account to now talk about learning environments. So so I want to list some of the issues that I think were important when we were facing that confinement in terms of school activities. For example, that quick transition to work on online teaching environments. In general, at least here in my institution and here in Mexico, we were not ready to face that challenge. However, teachers quickly respond to that, and so they were able to manage to keep moving in that situation. And of course, in that process, teachers and students face different obstacles, different problems. For example, the access to internet sometimes was not very robust. They didn't have the basic tools to engage in this type of online activities. And another issue that actually I'm gonna talk about is that we didn't have the proper materials for kids to guide their learnings. It was clear that, for example, the textbooks that they used to have in the face-to-face environment were not enough for kids to keep learning now in that online environment. So there was a need to develop this type of materials, new materials. So I'm gonna talk about that part later on. Also, another issue that came out, when in that environment, is that the lack of tools to follow students' work, and also the way to assess their learning, and also the problem-solving competencies. We didn't have those tools. We sometimes use different things, but that was a problem. And also teachers support, not just technical support to use different tools, but also ways to develop different means to follow the teachers, the students' learning, and the type of task now they implement, how to coordinate, like, for example, the use of different tools, mathematical tools, and also, online developments that, were available in online platforms, how to use them, how to integrate. So this new reality changed the way how to frame teaching environments. Here, what I want to do is to discuss a connection that I think is important when we talk about mathematics, when we talk about learning mathematics, and is the way how we use different tools. Here, I'll be talking about not just tools like a specific application, like, for example, GeoGebra. That's one particular tool. I'm talking also about semiotic tools. For example, writing is an important tool when we learn, not just mathematics and other subjects. So I want to emphasize a connection between the use of tools, mathematics, and learning. That's the issue I want to address in this part. And if we want to trace, if we want to follow the development of mathematics, we are able to identify how tools shape the way how we do mathematics. And of course, also the way how we learn mathematics now. Now that, for example, with the pandemic, people who are using different tools, an important question is to what extent the use of those tools shape the way students learn, and what type of learning they are now achieving using those tools. Clearly, for example, tools amplify human cognitions. Now we have, our memory gets increased when we use tools. Writing, for example, we don't have to memorize, everything. Now, the tool of writing plays an important role. And also, for example, to do computations, we can, operate with different numbers and even algebraic expressions using, doing tools. And in general, the way we represent the use of tools, amplify the way of doing these activities. And briefly, I want to trace, for example, in the Babylonian mathematics, we find tools. For example, the clay tablets were used to register problems, ways to solve those problems, and some particular results in mathematics. For example, when we talk about Babylonians, the empirical type of method was an important part to do mathematics. They engage in experimental type of mathematics, and the tools they use shape the way they presented and developed the disciplines. Another example, the Greek mathematics. For example, important tools like ruler and compass, straight edge and compass, they work in geometry problems. And the Euclid axiomatic method shaped the way to reasoning, to do mathematics. So there is a relationship between the tools and the way they approach problems. That's the message that I want to emphasize in this part of my talk. And, you know, semiotic tools, for example, you know, Descartes also developed the coordinated system, which is a powerful tool to represent and solve, for example, algebraic problems and also, you know, analytic geometry problems. So this is a relationship between tools and mathematical reasoning and the type of result that we produce in mathematics. So with this information, so now we have, you know, different digital tools. We have, for example, dynamic geometry system. We have, you know, other tools like Mathematica. We have, you know, different applications. So the question is how the use of those tools is going to shape the way people, you know, develop the discipline, develop mathematics, solve problems. That's an important part of my talk that I want to emphasize, the relationship between tools and way of reasoning, way of doing mathematics, and of course, way of learning. So the next part, I want to briefly review some of the conceptual frameworks that are used in mathematical problem solving. As I say at the beginning, you know, conceptual frameworks are tools to explain how, you know, people solve mathematical problems, how people learn mathematics. And in the area of problem solving, there are different frameworks. So I'm gonna characterize which I consider are the most important ones in problem solving. You know, a seminal reference when we talk about problem solving is the work of Polya. Surely you are familiar with Polya's work. Polya was an excellent mathematician who was interested in learning, in students and in teachers. He has, you know, many, you know, videos in which, you know, he gave a conference and you know, work with students at different places in the US and around the world. So Polya is famous in that sense. So he proposed a framework. I should mention that Polya's this is the book that, you know, in which he explained his mathematical framework, which basically is about characterizing the way how experts solve problems. And in that book, in that framework, he identified, you know, stages, important stages or phases to solve problems. For example, he mentions about, you know, understanding problems, devising a solution plan, carry out the plan, and looking back are the main stages that he refers when we talk about, you know, solving mathematical problems. And another part that he talks about in that book is the use of heuristics, which basically are ways to represent, ways to work on in mathematical problems. And the interesting part is that, for example, the heuristics that he identified in his framework later were studied in other research programs, in particular, the research program that was carried out by Alan Schoenfeld, in which, you know, he talks about how students solve mathematical problems. So Schoenfeld's work takes into account Polya's work, and then he actually, in mathematical problem solving is a very well-known Schoenfeld's framework. And so he also identified 4 important components, which are, resources. For example, when we want to solve one particular problem, he says that an important part is which knowledge base students bring to the problem. For example, if we talk about, a problem that involves, roots of polynomials, an important part is, for example, the meaning of roots, polynomials, factorizations, the basic knowledge. So the issue is how kids or students activate that knowledge, that basic knowledge. He also talks about heuristics, which are the ones that Polya identified in his framework. And he introduces, Schoenfeld introduces another an important component, which is the part of the cognitive type of strategies. Metacognitive strategies. Metacognitive strategies are, strategies for students to control their process of working in problems. For example, making decisions about, which way to take to solve one specific problem, and also when to change if that, way doesn't work. So monitoring the process of solving problems is a very important part when we understand concepts or solve mathematical problems. And also he talks about students' belief. What students believe about mathematics? What about, problems? What about problem solving? So based on those components, one is able to characterize, how, students and how teachers solve mathematical problems. That's one of the contributions, Schoenfeld's contribution that, are very important in mathematical problem solving. Technology, Polya and Schoenfeld, they didn't, explicitly talk about technology. Polya's work was published in 1945 and Schoenfeld's 1985. So at that time, technology somehow was not, developed the way we have now. But by 2011, Kohler and Misha talk about technology. And he says, teachers, they should, experience the way how to use technology, because technology shape the way how we do mathematics, and also shape the way how learning environments should, be designed. And so these 2 authors were the first one to explicitly talk about technology in terms of teachers' education. And they continue doing this work. And so now that development that they did is part of the agenda in the research work in mathematical problem solving. Recently, Ruthven is an English math educator, also talk about the importance of technology. And basically, he says that the way how, mathematics is developed, when technology is used, somehow increase the type of mathematics that now, is done. For example, he talks about the epistemic part of mathematics when we use technology. How, for example, new ways of proving, supporting mathematical arguments are kind of important. Based on this, brief review, so I want to identify, some which I consider are key elements to frame mathematical instruction, to frame teaching. When we talk about problem solving, what are the key components when we talk about problem solving? One important part when we want to implement problem solving activities in mathematical instruction is, the way how we talk about mathematics, the way how we conceive the disciplines. And in this case, an inquisitive or inquiring approach is very important to understand concepts and to work in mathematical problems. So that means that, for example, students, they should learn how to pose questions when they learn mathematics. That's a very important part. It's the inquisitive approach to the discipline. So students should, conceive of mathematics as a set of dilemma they have to investigate in terms of using mathematical resources and strategies. So that's an important part. Another issue when we talk about problem solving is the type of task, the type of problems that we choose to solve and for the students to learn. And for example, here it's very important to include different contexts. For example, problems that are situated in mathematical context. Others that, they can take, data from real situations and pose problems based on those data. And also, even, sometimes one can talk about artificial contexts that are important for kids to motivate them to solve the problems. For example, there are many of the problems. Sometimes the context is made up just for kids to be interested. For example, they play games. We can, take some information from those games and pose some questions that may be of interest to students. Another important part, which I think is key when we learn mathematics, is that a student should always look for different ways to solve mathematical problems. So in the traditional teaching, often is emphasized just solving the problems. After kids or students get the solution, they go to another problem. Here, the idea is that students always look for different ways to solve problems, because when they use different ways to solve problems, they have the opportunity to talk about the concepts, the resources they use, and how they were used to reach the solutions. So that's an important part. And also, they need to discuss, for example, the power of the strategies they use to solve the problems. So that's an important part. And finally, we should also have in mind that learning mathematics and learning to solve problems is a continuous process. It's not something that they are going to learn from one day or 2 weeks to another week. It's a continuous process, which involves that kids refine their thinking. They refine their way of posing questions. They somehow the way how they express their ideas is kind of getting better with time and with the opportunities that they have to express their ideas, to share other, peers, with not just the individual type of work, also the collective activities are important when we learn mathematics. An issue that is important is how we are going to register the students' work. And recently, during the pandemic, we developed kind of a framework to identify main components that students they have to register when they solve mathematical problems. And here are some of the conceptual ideas that we have identified. We identify something that we call a digital world, which basically is an space, and digital space in which students are going to put their work, to register their ideas, their problems, their questions. That's an important part. And also, to contextualize this work that students are going to put in that digital world, we use problem-solving approach. Later, I explain what I mean for that. And we talk about tools, resources, which resources students use to solve the problems. And also, we need what we call the support system. So how we are going now to assist students, for example, when they have some questions, when they need to be guided for solving specific problems, and also for example, searching for materials, online materials, how they are going to use it. If they use, for example, some online platforms, how they are going to use those platforms. That's the interesting part. So the question is, what are the components of that digital world or problem-solving notebook? What are the components? And for example, that digital world includes, for example, short videos in which, an expert teacher explains to them the concepts or how to solve different problems. Also, it includes the students' notes when they, solve problems, when they try to understand concepts, questions they pose, also their solutions, problem solutions are registered in that digital world. And also an important activity is the type of problems they are going to pose based on what the work that they have, done during the class interaction. And another issue, an important issue, is what we call self-assessment. So that's another issue that is very important for students to have that self-assessment. When we talk about problem solving, I had mentioned some issues before. That questioning method, the inquiry inquisitive approach, different type of task. I mentioned that. When sense-making activities, when they solve problems, multiple ways to approach the task, and also that I mentioned previously, that learning is a continuous process in which students continuously refine their thinking. Resources, tools, which ones are important? For example, there are online platforms. For example, in our approach, we have, integrated some part of those platforms, like Khan Academy and la Wikipedia. So we have, selected some part of that platforms to take into the classroom. Communication applications that we have now, we use Zoom to talk about, mathematics. So that should be one of the tools for the students to discuss problems. So another tool that we have used extensively is the use of GeoGebra. And probably later on, I can give you some examples. Also, discussion forums, how we can, discuss problems now. Who is going to get, the interaction between teacher and students, peers and peers, and even, for example, we can think of experts, not just teachers. The teacher, the assigned teacher can be, more than one teacher, and the support system, which means, teachers and experts feedback to students. As I say, self-assessment and also peer assessment is an important part. And now that we are kind of combining, online learning and face-to-face, we can also talk about, synchronous and tools or discussions, like, using chats or emails. And also an important part is to integrate that different forums to talk about, mathematics and problem solving. And, how those problem solving support system and resources are connected. Here, I just put some questions. Keep in mind that I have, emphasized that questions are the key part when we learn mathematics. For example, when we deal with specific problems, there are questions that, kids have to activate in that problem-solving interaction. Also, the type of resources they use. For example, online platforms. There are some videos that they can, bring to their classroom, and watch those videos and discuss them, when they talk about concepts, and also the interaction between the use of the tools and the support system. For example, the type of questions they pose, what type of help they need, if they receive some feedback, and so, for example, when they discuss their ideas with their classmates or peers, what happened in that discussion. So these are, in general terms, the issues that are important when we talk about, that tool which allows the students to register their work. And here, how we have put together all of those ideas. I mentioned before that the idea of developing materials for supporting students to learn mathematics and to solve problems is now beyond textbooks, like paper and pencil textbooks. So we have to integrate different type of technologies in those materials. So what I want to show you now quickly, some materials that we have been developing here in Mexico. I apologize because the materials are in Spanish, but it doesn't matter. I just want to show you the content and the way how we organize the material. So I'm gonna show you these materials. This material was developed for high school students, and it's about all the mathematics course that students take in high school. For example, the first course in Mexico in high school is about numbers. The second course is about algebra, geometry, calculus, probability are the courses. So I want to just show you how we put together, the activities and which tools we use. For example, quickly, each course has an initial diagnostic test. And for example, here, are some questions. An introduction. It's just quickly.
El curso de matemáticas te ofrece una guía y una oportunidad para que revises y amplíes las formas de razonar que resultan importantes durante el proceso de comprender.
Okay. A video. We use some videos to explain, to give directions and to explain some concepts. That's a tool that we use. I integrate that tool in the materials. Another is the okay. We show some solved problems. So just to illustrate the type of problems, how we present the problems to the students using this. Okay, for example, this problem is about the fortune wheel, and some students are lining up to take the fortune wheel. And for example, here are two students. They are in the place 17 and 18, and each chair of that fortune wheels has the capacity for four students. So the question is whether the students in place 17, 18 in that line are going to sit together in that fortune wheel. That's a very simple problem. So what I wanted to show you here is that based on that problem, we talk about different ways to represent the problem, like using pictures and questions about what does it mean that the chairs has the capacity for four students. Even we ask about how long does it take for a fortune wheel to give a trip, and if you have like X numbers of students, how many students fit in one complete wheelchair. So different questions. This is just to begin with. But what else? For example, solving the problems using pictures, actual pictures here, and some questions. That's an issue. That's another, using a table. How we can, order the data. For example, in the first chair, students 1, 2, and 3 are going to be seated, and here another way to represent, looking for parents. Again, the fifth chairs, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is, for example, given that the two students have the place 17, 18, they are going to sit in the chair, in the fifth chair, etc. That's the, so different ways to solve the problem. That's the issue. And also general case. Forget about the number of students. Can be n. What about the number of chairs? And then ask questions about the general case. Here are. And always there is a self-assessment. That's what I mean by self-assessment. So kids are going to be asked during the process of working with this task, self-assessment. And also there is a summary about the problem. In that.
Observa que para responder la pregunta inicial del problema, se consideraron diferentes formas o caminos.
is talking about the process of solving the problems, giving a summary there. And also another issue that is very important in those materials is making links to online materials. You know, for example, this problem involves division, involves prime numbers, involves, so we take them to different platforms. For example, as I say, the academy. So we bring that content to the problem. So students can somehow review their understanding of main concepts that are involved in that problem. No, that's another issue. And even, you know, we have some games in that. Let me see if I find some games. In that material, some games, for example, here we choose one. And for example, here, you know, there is a dice, and there is one question. So so anyway, this is the type of you know, material that we are developing for these kids to you know, engage in learning and solving problems. And you know, so we have so far developed all the high school courses using these ideas. And so at the end, they have to write like a final exams, and they have to, and they get a certificate when they go throughout the all activities, throughout all the quizzes, all the problems. So this is we try to incorporate, you know, those problem solving ideas in this type of materials. You know, at the beginning, it was like a project that intends to help kids who were having problems during the pandemic. But now we have opened these materials for every student, and so far we have about 250,000 students working on these materials. So we have all for calculus courses, we have, let me just see if I give you the list of courses that we have developed. Here are the courses. You know, we have physics, English, all the math 1, math 2, etc. All the math. And the idea is to all those research that we have, you know, published, done in problem solving, we're trying to incorporate in terms of activities, in terms of way of assessing students, and in terms of you know, developing, you know, mathematical thinking. And go back to my presentation. We have other materials, you know, for example, here is about calculus, we have about, you know, analytic geometry, but I don't want to show you that just quickly, you know.
Emmanuel, I'm sorry, you have, you know, not more than 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna close that now.
Thank you.
Remarks, you know, what is important when we talk about problem solving? It's the questions. That's a very important part, you know. We should, you know, teach students how to pose questions, to understand concepts and to solve mathematical problems. Online resources and platforms, they consult. So they are important to contextualize, you know, some problems. And also to review concepts. That's another important part. different ways to solve problems. That's another issue. When they solve problems by using different methods, different ways, so the idea is to analyze the concepts and the strategies and resources they use. That's another important part. And also an important element here is the identification of other problems that can be solved by using those ways of solving. Digital technologies play an important part here. I didn't show examples of that, but that's another important issue: the construction of a dynamic model of problems. When I mentioned that problems in calculus and in analytic geometry, there are plenty of models, dynamic models showing this plan. Again, another important part is the posing new problems. That's another activity. And discussion of solution of some new problems. And so students, for example, when they present something, sometimes they recorded some video presentations and they discuss those in the whole session. And they discuss about, for example, the extent to which the solutions they achieve were related to what, their peers' ideas or, the teachers' ideas. And so the idea is how they, can collaborate with, not just with peers, but also, with other students from even, different institutions or even different countries. Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. I have to say, this is my personal perspective. It's like one of the presentations that I would like to say, wow, it was very, very, very nice presentation, very inspiring. I have a lot of questions. Probably we will stay, me and you, here for another hour to ask my questions. But I will give the floor first to our colleagues. If you have any questions, please directly respond them to Emmanuel. If not, I can start with mine. Carla, please. Carla.
I knew we were going to say that, but I have at least one.
Yeah, please, no, more than one.
I'd like to congratulate you on this talk. I don't know, can you hear me? Maybe I can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, okay. So can you tell me which, in your opinion, is best for the students, or does it depend on the behavior of the student himself, on his personality? Which is best, synchronous or asynchronous or something hybrid to learn mathematics?
Yeah, hybrid. Yeah, I think the response is hybrid, interaction. So actually, the challenge, in my opinion, is how to reconcile both, face-to-face and online discussion. And the problem is that before the pandemic, it seems that students were not used to that interaction, and so they kind of separate, online on that side and face-to-face on the other side. So I think the challenge is how you reconcile both. For example, there are some homework or assignments that they can do it online and then bring that and discuss it face-to-face. So my idea is that, this type of hybrid approach modifies the old way of learning, of teaching, because students have the responsibility to go and do part of their work online and then bring that and discuss it. So it's not that, the teacher is the only one to provide the information. They are now, kids, looking for information solving some of their questions on their own, and then they bring something to the classroom. So that's the challenge for me, I think, that we'll face now.
Yeah, because I think that when you give them, even if it's a video for them to watch, if you're not there to reply to some questions while they're watching the video, or as soon as they finish watching the video, then I think you lose them. I don't know, in some topics that they think are harder for them to learn by themselves, if you are not there with them, so explaining online synchronously, not asynchronously, I think you can lose them. So asynchronously, it's in my opinion, it's still quite demanding for the students. So you may have everything online, right? But if you're not there to help them understand, guide them in their path in those online tools that you provided, videos, etc. I think you lose them. I don't think they are completely, at least not all students, completely ready for a flipped classroom. You know, for you to just give them the videos, the PDFs, whatever you have, all of the materials, and then they arrive in class and are the ones who are going to teach their colleagues about that specific topic. I don't think that they are ready.
I see your point. I mean, the issue is if, for example, you know, when they study a particular concept, so there are, you know, many videos in, you know, YouTube or other platforms. So the idea is that, for example, when they are face to face, they listen to their teachers. And sometimes, you know, even now, for example, one may ask, why not, you know, their teachers bring, you know, short video about the explanation of that concept. Or even, you know, they can record the teacher's explanation. So the idea is how they, you know, analyze and contrast, you know, what they bring from YouTube or from online to explain the same concept. So what are the difference? For example, the teacher's explanation and the video that I taken for that concept. So they have to learn, you know, to contrast. I mean, what are the common parts, the language they use? So that's an issue that it seems to me that needs to be, you know, part of the instruction. So, and, you know, an issue here is students' responsibilities, you know. And so that's an issue, you know, because normally, I mean, students are normally, they receive information from teachers. Now they look and they have to contrast. Rules are a little different. So I understand that it takes a process for kids to adjust to a new environment. But I think that's the challenge that we have now.
Yes, thank you.
I would say I would like to say something on what important, you know, Carla has mentioned. Two things I would like to add. I would say that, you know, regarding how responsible our students are, because everything now is designed for student-centered programs, so the students to be responsible has also a cultural impact. Me and Carla were coming from the South. So in the South, the kids are very well connected, not very well connected. In the North, also, they are very well connected with the families. But our kids are more dependent for longer period with the home and how, and they expect, you know, they expect the family and the parents to direct them. If you go to the North, I remember when I started my master's in St. Andrews, I was calling my mom, you know, everything was related to my family, but the British, at the similar age as me, they were completely dependent from 18 years old. So I would say the flipped classroom approach can be impacted by the culture from where the student is coming, but also it relates something that you have included into your presentation, self-assessment. So if the flipped classroom, the online part also is going to be supported by the self-assessment, this helps them to understand what do they don't understand, and in the face-to-face to ask the question. Again, asking a question, again, it has the cultural aspect of the students, because in the South, asking questions probably it looks like, you know, embarrassing because, oh, I'm a stupid guy, but I'm asking question. If you go to the North in German, probably here we have a guy that he is Latin America, but he lives in Austria. Probably he can reply to this, that, you know, Austrians and Germans and, you know, in general, the North Europeans, they dare to ask questions and say, I don't understand and I need more explanations. This is my opinion on this kind of question, because Carla mentioned something very important, but we should not forget that the flipped classroom has the automatic assessment before you come to the class, and also it is related with the culture.
Yes, I totally agree with you, but there's also something else which is related to the culture. When I had my previous Erasmus Plus project, which was DriveMath, so development of new technologies, new teaching methodologies for math courses, and I taught one course in it was Slovakia or Finland, I don't know. I taught 8 hours, an 8 hours course during this Erasmus protocols exchange, mobility, teacher mobility. And I used to have groups working in my class here in Portugal, and I usually ask the students to work in groups. But there, they did not want to work in groups. They preferred to solve the problems by themselves and do not contact with the other colleagues.
Sorry,
you know,
I think
4 or 5 elements.
Finland.
Finland, yes,
it was
in Finland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in Finland is fantastic. It was in Tallinn, right, George? Tallinn, I think it was Tallinn.
No, Tampere.
Oh, Tampere. Yes, that's Tampere. Yeah, in 2018. I think I got the year right. In 2018. And the students did want to cooperate. You know, I said them because I wanted to apply EduScrum in those classes. So I said, just split in groups of 4 or 5, please. And then we will solve some exercises together and discuss with the class. And they did not want to do that. Really, all of them. Only one girl was there, and then she told, come on, let's help the teacher. Let's help the teacher. And they decided together, but it was really tough. So there are cultures in which they work independently. Also, let's say the autonomy, maybe it's, you know, it has to do also with responsibility, autonomy, things completely different among cultures, among students. So
yeah, I totally agree with you, and I disagree with you at the same time. A flipped classroom probably does not include so much the peers learning, even though if you have a chat or if you can provide feedback to them in the real time, it's a crucial parameter. Regarding now learning with peers, that is proved that is the best way. Also, we should somehow force our students to follow what happens in the real life, because in the real life, it's very few times that they are going to work by themselves. They should learn how to work in teams, and also they should learn to work with assholes. I mean, people that they don't like, because this is life. You don't select your partner. Probably you can select your partner in life, but not in the professional field. So, I mean, yes, Carla, this is challenging, but sometimes the universities, they should engineer and they should plan the way of teaching in the classroom, so the students, they should learn the right way, even though that this is challenging.
Sure. I totally agree.
Any other question? Thank you very much, Carla.
Thank you
for interaction. I have some questions. One question that I have, Manuel, can you please provide us some strategies or some examples of self-assessments? I mean, I'm using Moodle, for example, and I can place multiple choice questions for them before they enter to the classroom. Are you using something else?
Yeah, actually, what happened is that let me just go again to. I'm gonna share again. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, an important part, for example,
Emmanuel, I would
Yeah.
like to comment something before I forget. You are the first person that you are saying the expression more than me. I have to say this.
Anyways, so self-assessment, like the idea is to ask students to reflect on their own learning, when they solve a task, when they understand a concept, that is the idea. So what we have, let me see if I at the beginning, self-assessment. So there are different questions, and so kids are, they go through the test, and the important part here is that after they finish the test, there is one, feedback. How many questions they answer rightly, and which one they fail, and also that there are some directions for them to say, look, these are the difficulties that you face in that test. If you want to review some of the concepts, so there are some links for help. That's an important part. Another part is that when they finish a task, there is another test about what they learn, the strategies. So continuously they are reflecting on their own learning. So which is related to what you both said, independence. And also, constant, you say it, big problems, I mean, are difficult to solve them individually. You have to, eventually you have to get used to work with your peer, to work with other people. So which means collective, ideas. And the behind all of that issue, the problem is for kids to become independent at one stage. When they are independent, I mean, they have their life, solved in that sense, So you see teachers as a way to, ask them for guidance, to guide, to solve particular questions. But it's your own responsibility, to look for different ways to contrast, to share your ideas and etc. So this type of tests are embedded through all the materials. So that's self-assessment. Actually, this material was designed as an auxiliary material, in addition to the actual teaching and things like that. But now kids are kind of using it. So
thank you, Emmanuel. And I have a final question for you. I mean,
okay.
I really like the games, and the games that you presented, they have a scenario. And since with Carla, we are looking for scenarios for something else.
Right.
Can you please share it with us? This kind of games, even in Spanish, I think that we can translate them using Google Translate in order to identify the scenarios. I'm very much interested about the scenarios and how we can make a story in order to build our escape rooms. We would like to build escape rooms for mathematics.
I can send you the links and you can play with those courses. Are in Spanish.
Yes.
Next is going to be in English.
I mean, if I can modify them, if you give me an access, I can translate them in English.
Okay, sure, no problem. I send you the link.
Excellent. And can I ask a final one? What kind of program do you use in order to make your presentations? Because you have very nice images, very nice transitions. Is this a PowerPoint?
No, it's a Keynote. This is the Macintosh.
Keynote. I have a Mac and I'm using PowerPoint.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm ridiculous, no? All right. So I think that it's late. Thank you very much for your interest, your genius, because we are looking for people with genuine, how can I say, original interest. So your presentation was very good. I think very inspired. I will share the link with the rest of the people that they did not manage, mainly because of my mistake. As I repeat, you know, I notify you, all of you, in the last moment. So Emmanuel, excellent. Thank you very much. And I hope that we are going to meet you in face-to-face events that we are going to organize in Europe. And also to all of us to submit a new capacity building with Mexico and Latin America, all of us in this beautiful field of teaching STEM, because physics, I should include physics as well, somehow. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Bye.
Thank you.
It's mathematics. It's above mathematics. Mathematics is the basics of everything. So it's
Of course. Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.